This is Colin O'Keefe for LXBN TV and our affiliate Texas Bar TV, here with our last interview of day one of the State Bar of Texas annual meeting. I am joined here by Rocky Dhir. He is with Atlas Legal Research, and we just spoke off air about something. Tell me about your first legal job. I understand there's quite the interesting story behind this.
Yeah, I don't know that it's the best thing in the world to be known for, but I'll go ahead and tell our viewers about the story. So my first legal job was as a federal law clerk for the Honorable Jerry Buckmeyer, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago, but for the longest time was a Texas legal icon. And when he hired me, he noticed on my resume that on the interest section it said celebrity impersonations. And so he turns to me and says, "Well, which impersonations can you do?" And I said, "Well, I can do Bill Clinton, I can do Ross Perot, I can do Kermit the Frog." So first he asked me to do a Bill Clinton, and so I said, "Well, I got to tell you, it's a real honor to be here today, here, just interviewing with you. I'm just glad that I'm not an intern, because the idea of being an intern kind of scares the hell out of me." But and then he said, "Well, you said Kermit the Frog and you said Ross Perot," and I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Well, can you do Kermit the Frog's impersonation of Ross Perot?" And that one threw me for a loop, and so I said, "Well, let's see. First, we have Kermit the Frog, and it is interesting that I am sitting here with a microphone, and yet I am not the host of the television news show." And then I said, "Well, now Ross Perot, of course, would say something like, 'Now I got to tell you, this is pretty ridiculous. You're coming out here to a brand new hotel. You're walking around here going to all these exhibits, and there's nobody here to make sure that you paid your ticket. I just don't understand what kind of a business model this is.'" You put the two together, and it would be something like, "Well, now, one of my big complaints is that there were no flies at lunch." And so when I did this impersonation, you know, I thought I'd tanked it, and the judge turned to me and he goes, "Well, you're hired. Welcome." That was my first legal job, and I never lived that one down.
Very excellent. I mean, better to get it that way than not get it at all, I guess. And then second, you have an Ignite session here earlier today, and your session was on telecommuting. Tell me a bit about how that works, operates in the legal space, what you've seen there, and how people can get started and get going with telecommuting.
Well, you know, it's interesting. Lawyers are, now I'm going to get serious for a second. I'm going to stop the impersonations. But lawyers tend to be a little bit slow to adopt things. I mean, email was a great example of this. Lawyers took the longest time to adopt email. You know, companies like LexBlog are out there at the forefront talking about social media, and lawyers are very slow to adopt things like social media. Well, telecommuting is kind of the same thing. Lawyers think that they have to go into a physical office space and that they have to dress up in a suit and tie every day, and they don't. And so part of what I was trying to get across in the 5 minutes that I had with the audience was to say, look, there's a different way. You can have a better quality of life by exploring issues like telecommuting. The thing you got to be careful of is telecommuting brings with it a tremendous boost in productivity, and that's been borne out by studies. But what you lack, or what you get in productivity, you sort of lose a little bit when it comes to innovation and collaboration. So the real thing that lawyers have to do is figure out, when do we need to come into the office and collaborate, and when is it okay for us to work from home and be more productive? So my recommendation is, you know, pick a day or two every week and have your staff come in for an hour or two. So have some office space that you have access to. It doesn't have to be full offices for everybody, but have some meeting space where people can come in and collaborate for even just a few hours a week to get that collaboration, that innovation. And if you're say preparing for trial, or you're doing something where people really need to work together a lot, then again, make sure you've got an office space for that.
Absolutely. There's a number of solutions available, but it's worth exploring telecommuting because it definitely has its advantages. Once again, that was Rocky Dhir of Atlas Legal Research as we close down day one of the State Bar of Texas annual meeting. Visit our coverage. It's at lxbn.com and at texasbartoday.com as well. Thank you, Rocky.
Thank you, Colin. Appreciate it.